that come from your domain, but in terms of implementation, you would like to have it under control. So for example, if we look at the init program feature and modify edge feature and maybe, I don't know, display map feature, as we did before. Then there is something that we call feature relationships characterization graph. This basically, what this allows you to see is the dependencies in terms of who creates instances of classes and who uses them. So, in this picture, we can see two arrows from the display map and modify edge features going to the init program feature. This basically means that init program feature creates some objects, instantiates some classes that then are reused by modify edge and display map. This makes sense, but when you port your monolithic application to the NetBeans Rich Client platform, then you will have to remember that if you have this kind of dependency, then maybe you would like to refactor that if you don't want to have it. In this case, I think it's kind of justified because initialization of a program kind of creates a logical environment for the display and modify basically for all the other features in your program. So in this case, those dependencies actually can make sense to have also in your NetBeans RCP application. Okay. The last view that I would like to show you today, I have a couple of more, but you can also look at them when you download the tool, is some charts. Yeah. Here I'm running Windows in the box, and the drivers for OpenGL are not perfect, and one of those views uses OpenGL. So this I will just switch it to the class granularity instead of package granularity. Yeah, that's just the Windows in the box thing. Otherwise, it should work without any problem. So we have this kind of fancy 3D view that you can see. Basically, maybe I will start from the easier one first. You have two views, which are basically your scattering of your features. So, for example, if you look at your init program feature, then you can see by the height of the bar that it's scattered over many classes in your program. This means that if you have a bug in this feature, then you will probably spend relatively more time correcting it than, for example, in the zoom feature, because simply there are more places to look at, and of course this can also mean that there is more complexity in it. By the colors you can see that the init program features has some feature-specific classes, which is not the case actually for the zoom feature. So zoom feature shares also all of its classes with other features. This will, for example, give you some hints. If you want to modify zoom feature, then if you modify one of those blue classes, which are heavily shared with other features, then you should probably expect that if you change the semantics of your interface of your class, then it's possible that some of the other features will just break, will be no longer correct after you did the modification. So basically this graph shows you how features are scattered over code. The other perspective is when you look at classes and say how many features are tangled in terms of a single class. So for example, if you go and modify a class for some reason, for example, you do a performance optimization of a class and you have no test cases for this class, then if you do that for a heavily shared class like this one, like controller, then you are likely to run into problems because there are many features using that. And again, if you just change semantics of some of the stuff that you have in your class, then this can cause some problems. But on the other hand, if you change some of those green classes that are feature specific, then it's fine. You just need to, when you then run your application and see if everything works, if you have no test cases, then you just go to this one feature that uses this class, then you check if it's still working. If it does, then it's fine. And basically this 3D view is a combination of those two views. Basically gives you the same perspectives. If you just go to different angles of viewing this view, then you can get almost the same pictures. So that's the idea. There are several other views that I will maybe not go into today. There is one that shows the control for all of your features, how methods call each other in terms of your feature. A nice thing about this, I will just show that briefly because it's quite cool. So for example, if you go to your source code, maybe if I now it's very small, but I will try to go maybe to this somewhere in the model, to the edge model class, and then if we are lucky, then we will hit some of the, when we are browsing the source code, then we will hit some of the methods that are also in this. Oh yes, you can see that something moved in this corner. So if we browse through the source code of our application, then most of those diagrams are actually context sensitive. So right now, if I'm looking at this getColor method, and if I just zoom this a little bit in, or maybe just choose a bigger window next time, then I can actually see that in the context of this concrete feature, not in this context of the static dependencies in your program, but in the context of the runtime execution of this feature, this getColor method was called by another getColor method in another class, and it calls getSource method in the same class. Yeah, so this is the things you can do. Yeah. So
this is amazing.
That was
That's really
basically
cool.
the things that I wanted to show you.
How long did it take to make this feature for NetBeans?
It's like, yeah, we took basically 2 iterations on that. We had the first version ready after I don't know, around 3 months of work, and then this new version, like more user-friendly version, then we spent, I don't know, maybe another 3 months or 2 months working on. Of course, this is still work in progress. The idea right now is that some of those things here are like research ideas that we would like to try out in the real world, you could say. And the idea is that we have this feedback questionnaire. We would like to get as much feedback as possible, see what works for people, what doesn't. There are just some things that we thought may be useful, but the programmers have to say how much it will be, how much it works, to what extent it works in the real world. But the experience with working on this with the NetBeans platform was quite positive. There are quite many APIs involved in that. We had to use the Nodes API, of course, the Lookup API for extensibility. So if you implement a view, then it will show up as an icon in here on this toolbar.
Perfect.
Because we find it using Lookup. Then there was a lot of things involving interaction with editor, which was actually quite fun, and static analysis of source code. There was also this different usage of different libraries for visualizations. And basically,
so what's the future? What's the future of this project?
Basically, the future of this project would be to try to see how it works in the real world, get the feedback, and try to do some improvements and see how we can actually make a useful tour of that.
And tools for modularization as well.
Exactly. And then the next step is we have a separate branch of our research where we look actually at how to modify the source code to separate features in the code. And those kind of 2 pillars, we will try to merge them in the future at some point to make this tool support kind of automating, at least to some extent, the separation of features in your code flow.
As a first draft modularization from here.
Exactly. Exactly.
Kind of tool-driven breakdown of a monolithic application into a modular application.
And I have one more comment about the usage of the NetBeans platform. We have written some papers about that. And what worked very well, at least for reviewers, was that when we could show in our papers that we have a tool actually implemented. And it's not only implemented, but also tightly integrated with the NetBeans IDE. That was always a good thing for our papers. We always got positive comments on that this is great that we have this tool and it's implemented with what programmers already use. So I think that's where it really pays off to use the API. Maybe spend some time learning the APIs, but then in the end it pays off to do that. Also, all those integration things. You know, this source code integration, it wouldn't be really possible otherwise if we didn't hook into NetBeans.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thanks. Thanks a lot.